good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Harrison Cunningham, and I am the manager of the Fairfax County Public Schools Parent Resource Center. Just wanted to quickly, before I introduce our other guests today, just make sure that everybody had a pamphlet, card, my card. So just briefly, in those flyers are things that we do at the Parent Resource Center. We're located over at Dunmoring, so just up the street from the Metro. And we have a full library and offer a lot of services there for families that have students that may have learning challenges or special needs. So please take a look at what we have. Our workshops are fabulous. They're able to give you a lot of resources and supports. And let me know as we progress and even afterward today if you have questions about those, okay? So to my right, we have Debbie Lorenzo. She is coordinator for procedural support services out of the Office of Special Education in Fairfax County. And Angelina Prestipino is one of her managers for procedural support there too. So we're really here, I know, to talk about special education, answer your questions, and hopefully provide you some answers and some resources that you might need. Okay. So just a little more about the Parent Resource Center. So we do have a lot of materials that you can check out with regard to learning needs, educational needs, mental health, as well as we also have children's books. So if you're looking for materials to support the reading of your own children, we have a lot of those materials as well. It is free. You just need to come in and you can sign up with one of our library cards and check out materials and use them as you would like. What's nice about when you check out materials is we'll give you a bag. You can actually put those books back in the bag, take it to your local school, and they will send it back to us. So we try to make it as convenient as possible for you. If you can't come to Dunmoring and to our center, you can actually, if you go on the Fairfax County Public Schools library system, not the public library, but the school library system, you can actually just type in Parent Resource Center and our library will come up and you're then able to see the materials that we have, and you can go to your own school librarian and say, I'd like to get these books from the Parent Resource Center. They will contact us and we can get those books sent to your school. So just so you know, there are many ways to access our materials and want to make sure that if you'd like to, you have the availability to do so. And then our workshops, we run about 60 workshops a year and all different titles and subject areas. And so if you're interested in any of those, we have things from for children that have ADHD, homework, how to help your children with homework, and all sorts of other titles. And we have those available. I think I brought them for you through November. We're always doing more. How many of you, let me ask you this, get emails from your school called News You Choose? Do you know what that is? Okay, thank you. So if you go to the Fairfax County website and type in the Parent Resource Center, okay? At the very bottom of our page, you can sign up for our emails called News You Choose. So do so, because then what'll happen as we start to advertise our workshops and other things, you can get that email and see what's coming up. And if you're interested, then you can register. And again, this is all free of charge. We just really enjoy supporting our families and our parents. Okay? Any questions about the Parent Resource Center? Okay. Ladies?
Want to describe a little bit about the office?
Sure.
Can you do that? Hi, I'm Debbie Lorenzo. I'm the coordinator for the Office of Procedural Support. And what we do is work with families and school teams from preschool all the way up to secondary. So we work with school teams of students that may have suspected disabilities, so you're not in special ed yet, who have Section 504s. They qualify for Section 504, or are students who have disabilities and are in our schools. So we have, in our office, there is 2 departments. The Department of Procedural Support, which Angelina, myself, are part of with another program manager, Christina Roman. And then we have 24 what we call procedural support liaisons. So they are set each pyramid. So if you belong to, let's say, the Stewart pyramid. So the Stewart pyramid has a person that's assigned to them, and they work with all the schools from elementary all the way to secondary, and they support special education. So every pyramid in Fairfax County has a procedural support liaison that's attached to them, and they work with the school teams and work with the families to support any kind of questions or anything you need at an IEP meeting, an eligibility meeting, or any questions that come up that you need answers to. What else do we want to know? Our office does have a director over it, and our director is Jane Strong. We also have another department on the other side, which is the Office of Due Process and Eligibility. So if for some reason you have concerns or that you'd like to talk to somebody, a specialist from that office, you could talk to them about processes that they have if you want to appeal a special ed issue. You want to appeal something that's in your child's individualized education program, their IEP, or you want to appeal, or you have concerns about something that's in their eligibility process. So why they were found eligible for special education. Anything else you want to add?
So what our office does, for many of you, if you are aware, our government, we have a law that protects students who have a disability. And so our office works with you in the schools to support the implementation of the special education services within the law and to help you understand your rights as a parent and support you through the process as well as the rights of your child. And so that's a huge piece of what our procedural support liaisons do in working with all of you and working with the school. And we're certainly there to answer questions that you might have and guide you through the process if that's what you need. And so we serve as a liaison between you and the school.
So what we'd like to do is really open up the floor to questions. I know that these ladies over here you might have to leave early, so you had some questions that we want to start off with, okay? Oh, okay. All right. Who has some questions? That's why we're here today. We really just want to hear. Yes, ma'am.
My daughter, she will be 4 in November. I applied for her in many schools, but didn't accept her because she will be 4 in September. But she stayed in the home around 1 year. Now she forget Arabic, didn't speak English, stuck to cell phone. The program which in the Venice elementary school, just 2 hours, 2 days per week, not enough for her, you know. And also I have son in this age. It's very terrible, you know. Staying at the home all the time is very terrible.
Are you looking for?
But not private, because we are low income.
Right. So we have a couple things. So where is she right now? Does she get 2 hours where? Oh, okay. So she's in the early literacy program. First, I don't know if some of you know about and I will get to your question, but our early literacy programs, those support children who aren't in another type of preschool program. Perhaps families either financially are not able to send their children to a private preschool, but these our early literacy programs and our HIPPY programs do support children by supporting parents in helping their children with early literacy skills. So I know that's not, you're saying it's not enough. Had you applied for the Head Start or FESET program? Okay, that's another program that I would highly recommend to you. In fact, when I was talking with, so that it's FESEP, it's F-E-C-E-P, okay? And that is actually, that program, and you can find it on the FCPS website, okay? And I know the last I talked with that group of people, they, thank you, they were, I think, still had some openings. So FESET is what we call our Head Start program. And Head Start is for children prior to age 5, who, and it is through actually in collaboration with Fairfax County government, but we house the programs in FCPS schools. And there is, there are limits as far as enrollment, but please go ahead and call that office to see if they have any openings, okay? That would be the only other public program that your daughter could get into at this point. Karen, any other ideas besides FESET?
Was she asking for
More than just 2 hours a day.
is she child find services?
Now, do you believe your daughter may need supports in school as far as she might have special needs? Or is she having trouble with speech or anything like that? Or are you just looking for more time in school for her? Okay, so she's kind of forgotten her Arabic. Is she speaking English? She's not speaking English. Okay. All right. So there's another opportunity for you, just to see if in fact there may be some concerns about her learning. So also at the Dunn-Loring Center we have Child Find. That is also, you can find the information on the website if you just type in Child Find. And if you're having concerns about your daughter being able to learn, you can call that office and make an appointment and bring your daughter with you. And what they can do is sit down with you, and certainly with any of you if you have young children. Child Find is really available for children 2 to 5. If you're concerned about your child's language skills, developmental skills, whether they're fine in gross motor skills, Child Find can actually sit down with you and take a look at your child and see if they might need other specialized supports. If they believe that there's a need, they will go through and do a battery of tests with your child, again, with your permission, of course, and determine whether or not they may qualify for preschool special education services. And that if they do qualify, then we have preschool special education programs in the county that your daughter could access, or any child if found eligible could access. And that again is free of charge. They would have an individual education plan and would be provided those preschool services in the preschool program closest to your home. It maybe wouldn't be your base school or your home school if they don't have a preschool, but it would be as close to your home as possible, or if they don't have room, right? But your child would get transportation and so forth to go to school. Okay, does that help? No, you don't. So the preschool program would be your daughter going to school. Right, no, that would not be something that you would have to do with her.
A bus will pick them up. If she qualifies and is able, then you can pick up.
Okay. Yes. The student. Thank you. So there are some, if a student does not require, maybe requires minimal service, then services can be provided in the home.
So it's a resource level of service. So you can be a class-based is what they call it when you're in a classroom, or you can have a resource level where they provide it in the home or at a private preschool if your child goes to a private preschool. All of that is explained in that one process.
In child find. Yes, ma'am.
She said, I have a senior. Is it possible that he would have access to SAT books at home? And how can I do this? What's the easy
SAT books. I would think that just the local library would have SAT books as well as the Career Center.
It's not available at the local library.
Okay, have you tried, has he gone to the College and Career Center at his school?
Yeah, I'm right.
They didn't have them either? Okay.
And there's something online.
Yeah, online? Yeah, SAT does provide, or what you would go to College Board. That's the website. And they would provide, they do have practice tests available. Does that help? Okay.
I have a fourth grade student, and I feel when they come home, they don't have enough homework to do at home. What's the easiest way or the best way that you can tell me the resources I can help my children do homework at home?
Okay. I would actually start with, if you feel like your child doesn't have enough homework, or I'm not sure what enough homework means, it may depend on your house, but I would absolutely reach out to your child's teacher. Okay. 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 Again, I would actually start with her teacher and just say, you know, I really would like to reinforce the skills that you're teaching in the classroom. Could you send some things home with her? Whether that's an extra book or a workbook or, you know, project or something like that. But the classroom teacher is going to be your best resource. I would highly encourage you to make sure that she has reading time every single day. That she has a book that she's reading. Did you say she's in fourth grade? Fourth grade, your daughter? She should be reading at least 30 minutes every day. None of us. I will share with you though that children do need some downtime. They do need time to play because they need to recharge their batteries, which is why when we have children do recess at school, they have lots of energy. And so it's really important that your children do get some free time at home, but then also, you know, you may want to come up with, I would assume maybe she has chores to do, or she has some jobs to do at home. It's a great thing to do is set up kind of a chart, and you know, and make a schedule. So when your daughter comes home every day, maybe she gets 30 or 45 minutes to have some downtime, have a snack, you know, and then there's study time, and then there's chore time. And that sometimes will help it'll help your daughter, it'll help you, kind of get a schedule going. So then she knows, or they know when they come home, that those are what the expectations are. And then you don't feel so much like there's a lot of downtime. Does that help? Okay.
I just have one other suggestion.
So this is about your son with the SAT. I would check with the high school. Some high schools offer a class where he can practice the SAT. It could be during the school day, it could be an after-school opportunity for him. So maybe if he checks with, or you check with the counselor and ask about that. I do know that College Board also offers sort of, through other companies, there are classes that maybe occur in the evening or on the weekends. You would have to pay for those, but I don't know how much those cost. But again, it might be another resource to support him with that. But I would check with your school and the counselor there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have.
I know.
Actually, there is some parents asking more than one time about what the difference between special need and special education. And there is any chance, for example, if my son or my daughter got the special education to exit some year or some days from this program, because most of the parents, they don't acknowledge that their kids have a problem. They don't let them. Yeah, they don't like it. Yeah, because sometimes when they feel they have some problem, but they don't admit that. It's okay, it's normal. Maybe because they're not, because we have more than one language speak in the home, so that's why he's late to speaking. But there's a problem actually.
You can rephrase the question for the camera, so maybe that's the best clear.
Sure. So the question was, what I did here was, is there a difference between special needs and special education? And is there a possibility that a student could exit the special education program with time? Because what I heard was that some families, they recognize that something might not be right with their child, but maybe they're afraid to acknowledge it, or they just don't accept that something is wrong and they think things will get better. Okay. So when we refer to students with special needs, we're referring to the person who has a special need, who has a disability. We support them through special education programs. So it's a person with special needs, and special education is the program that supports them. So to answer your first question, yes, our goal always as special educators is to develop an IEP, which is an individualized education plan for your child, with the hope that with the services, and we work on developing goals, and when we work on goals, the idea is to achieve those goals, right? So the idea behind that is we work with your child on those goals through those special education services, always with the hope that your child's skills develop and that with time that they would not need as much support. But we are obligated as professionals, when we do recognize that a child has special needs, to propose what we believe will support that child. Some children never stop needing special education. And they are eligible for special education in Virginia until the age of 22, or until they receive and they earn a high school diploma, whichever comes first. So, because that speaks to the nature of the disability. So, for example, a child with a learning disability, inherently in the brain, there is a processing deficit that causes them to have gaps in their learning. And so that processing deficit may never go away. They may always have that issue in their brain. It just may show itself differently. With those special education services, our hope is to reduce the impact of that processing deficit so that they can become more independent, more resilient, and have skill sets that they can carry on into life. So we can't, as much as we'd love to predict that we could stop servicing a student, there's no way to know. Some children come in as preschoolers because they're having communication deficits, and by the time they get to 2nd or 3rd grade, they have overcome and they have compensated enough that they no longer present as a student with a disability and no longer need services. Or perhaps they don't need them as intensely, so we can support them from a much less number of hours, or and they can continue. I think part of your question too relates to parents have a hard time accepting that their child has a disability. And we totally understand that. We experience that every day. And many families, once they do go in the process of accepting it, it's very similar to a grieving process when we lose a loved one. That we go through phases of, oh, I have to recognize this has happened. And sometimes it's very difficult because for us as mothers, especially, I think, no sexism intended there. We, of course, as parents, we want what's best for our children, and we want them to be healthy and to be successful. And so when something is wrong, not that there's anything wrong, but that's kind of how we initially feel, right? It's, oh, something is wrong with my child. It's not that there's anything wrong, they're just gonna learn differently, and that's what special education allows, is for us to teach them differently and accommodate their needs so that they have the opportunity to access their education and be successful. So that you're aware, there are many famous people in the world who we now know had learning disabilities. Albert Einstein has been determined to have been a gentleman with autism. Thomas Edison was a gentleman, you know, invented the light bulb, had a learning disability. We're coming to know these things now. So it has nothing to do with your intelligence or what you can achieve. It's how can we work with you and support you so you can achieve.
My son is 28 years old now. We went overseas when he finished home grade in Fairfax County Public School, special education. When we came back, he was rejected to continue his education. He told us he's over the age, which is 24 at that time. But then we never told him about he can still seek for,
The Department of Rehabilitation.
we tried to call the GED, and he did not do it. He's small, he's very small. So where can we give that?
Well, it's through, there are adult education programs in the county, and a lot of things that we will see is like Bryant High School, we have Mountain View High School, that have students there that are in their 30s and their 40s. So there is an adult education piece. But when students, have you reached out to the Department of Rehabilitative Services when students are involved in special ed, they can access?
Not for now. We reached the organization to work it out.
Okay.
But he still doesn't have,
He wants to finish. I wonder through the Woodson Adult Ed, that's what I was thinking of, Woodson Adult Ed. Yes, contact them, and Woodson High School, they have Woodson Adult Ed. It's through our, what we call our interagency schools, and there is a program there for adults. So he may be able to take the GED and pass after some tutoring. They will offer some tutoring, and if he's able to meet the standards and meet the benchmarks, he can then take the test. That's, yes, I was just. I believe on the website, it should be for Woodson Adult Education. If you call there, if for some reason they're not able to meet his needs, they may be able to direct you to another program like you were just talking about, if that's not the program for him. Central registration, because he was too old to register back into the school system, is probably what they were saying.
Was he a student with special needs that he's identified?
Yeah.
I have a question of many parents actually have difficulties in starting with, especially that they know and feel that their kids are a little more harsher and they definitely need help with homework and the way they do it. But they almost deny the fact that it's not special needs. That's big red flag. How can we, as maybe our side here, the nonprofit, and you guys as Fairfax County, simplify the process of identifying those kids with somehow IDP need a path or maybe a special education service that would be help for that child? I noticed that some would have the teacher contact them and give them that alert that you're trying to somehow qualify to get meeting okay to get evaluation, and most of them would reject somehow. The other parents would come to me and they say, we are feeling that our son or daughter, they need that help. How can we start? So that's what I need. Is it through the teacher? Yeah.
Well, you would begin with their school.
Can you please rephrase the question so that
How do you, if you suspect that your child may have a special need or may have a disability, how do you get help? Where do you start? I would start with whatever the base school is, with that teacher, with that counselor. A lot of times the counselors have been involved. The administrators in an elementary school know all their students. They're really close and they know which students are struggling. We have what we call response to intervention that's going on in schools, where they're doing interventions prior to a student, so that we can avoid students needing to go through the eligibility process. So you want to ask those questions. Has my son gone through interventions in the school? And what are they? What do they look like? What areas are they struggling with? But that teacher really will know. And you talk to that teacher, and if they have any struggles, please reach out to our office. Our procedural support liaisons, I talk to parents all the time. I get phone calls and they say, I don't know where to start, I'm confused, my son is struggling in reading, and then I'll connect them to the person in our office, or Angelina or Christina, and say, can you give this parent a call, or can you meet this parent at the school? They're not sure what the local screening process is, or they just need somebody to explain it. And then we are partnering with the Parent Resource Center to give a presentation in October, which is a collaboration. And those kind of presentations help with explaining a very complicated process, because you come in and you sit at this table and they call it a local screening meeting, and everybody just starts talking at you and telling you all the things your child can't do. And that becomes very overwhelming and very confusing, and then they use a lot of language and jargon that is just very legally and it's technical. And then you kind of just shut down. We get it, we see it, never be afraid to say, can you slow down? Can we do this in more than one meeting? I really don't understand. Can somebody explain that again? Don't sit that whole meeting and then just get up and just sign and leave there not knowing what just happened. We hear that all the time. I didn't understand, but I didn't want to interrupt.
I want to also bring another point. It's a real case where another came to me and she said, my son had to repeat first grade. He had to repeat first grade. Imagine, just because he doesn't get the whole learning material and he doesn't retain the information. They did not offer to her the IEP. Nothing. He had to repeat first grade, and by third grade, she's the one who wrote a letter to the teacher asking her to please evaluate him for IEP. That's a parent, imagine. So first, second, by the third grade, the parent brought that up. Based on her letter writing, that's when he started looking and he was qualified for IEP. So technically, he lost 1 year of education. First grade, doing nothing really. What's your advice to those parents who face that challenge?
Before any child should be retained, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. Do not, just because the educators tell you that they want to retain your child, that doesn't mean you have to agree. Ask what supports can we put in place, what supports can they get in the next grade so that they can continue on with their peers. Because we know that with retention also comes with that social piece. Now your peers have moved on and now you're still in first grade with a new set of peers, but you're still in the same school, seeing the same friends, and they're wondering why you didn't move up with us. That's heartbreaking for a lot of students. So again, I would not be afraid to question and ask and say, is there anything else we could be doing other than retaining my child?
Exactly. She rejected. She rejected the first stage of second, and she even met with the principal of the school, the elementary school. The principal also told her that he must be to be retained, even though she said no.
she could go to, they have supervisors above the principal, so they call the regional superintendents. So every region has a superintendent and has an executive principals that are attached. So here, it would be Dr. Oswego. And you can call over to the offices and say, this is what I see happening, I don't agree. And don't be afraid to reach out. You would be the first parent calling to the region office and just saying, I don't agree and I want to meet with somebody and I want to talk through this.
Made me feel so bad that the principal actually sat with her. She said, no, we're not moving forward. She didn't know, because that's the head of the school. She didn't
Yes.
go beyond.
She can go beyond, you can always go beyond.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got a couple. So in your packets, when you were asking about how do you start the process, we are doing a workshop called Introduction to Special Education. And it is, this is a course, a workshop that I do. This takes you through the process. It looks at kind of where your child is, what are your next steps, what the process looks like. So you're really aware of what's going to happen throughout the process. And always as a parent, if you believe that your child may have learning difficulties, absolutely, as Debbie said, please talk to the school. But you can also fill out what we call a multi-purpose referral. Okay? If I tell you anything today, that's one of those things that you can do as a parent. It's called multi-purpose referral. And so if you have concerns about your child's learning, this is a referral that you fill out. You can find it online on the FCPS website, as well as you could get it from your school. You fill it out with your concerns. The team at your school does have to meet within 10 days of receiving this referral from you. Okay? So what it does is it starts the process in motion for you to then sit down with the school team. And that's the school psychologist, the teacher, the special education chair, an administrator, and you have discussions about your child. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have an evaluation, okay? But what it does do is it starts a conversation about, are there interventions, are there other things that the school could be doing to support your child? And if the learning challenges are significant, they're probably going to say, okay, I think we need to evaluate this child to see what's going on, so we then can make some really even better decisions about how the child is going to be educated. Okay, so you do have, if anything today, I want you all to understand that you have rights as parents, you have a voice, and it is okay to raise your voice in school and say, I need some help from my children. And working with the school is so important, because every school, they want to work with you, but if they don't hear you, they don't hear from you, then they may think, okay, it's all right, we'll kind of do what we're doing here. And they're going to do the best for your child. Every school wants to do the best for children. But if you have concerns, please let them know. Okay?
She's going at the Fairfax County program. So what I see, that's my daughter learn faster, but she's going too slow. And last meeting with the IEP, I told them, the first meeting actually when she was in preschool, I told them that she needs just a small group, but they put her in the IEP program. But what my opinion that if she go to small program, small group or normal school, she can catch more because she's smart. But because she's with she can learn more, but she's too slow. So can I do evaluation?
So you have several options. The first thing I would do is I would ask for an IEP meeting because you'd like to talk about your daughter's progress and your perspective on what you see her ability to learn and to do things. The teachers should be coming at that meeting with information about her progress, and that's where you can have an opportunity to have that conversation. At that same meeting, you could also say, I think I would like some testing to look at how much she has made progress. That's not just the everyday schoolwork, right? So you could ask for evaluations to be completed. I don't know how long ago those evaluations were done on your daughter previously, but if they've been, a year, 2 years, definitely 3 years or more, then certainly the team should converse with you about that and collaborate with you and come together with a decision about testing her and seeing where she's falling at that time. And from there, then you come back to another IEP meeting and have some more conversation about, should my daughter be in a different class? Should she be in a general education class? Maybe with some support so that she can be more exposed to those general education environments and have opportunities to learn differently or to have those experiences in a different way than where she currently is.
I have a question that relates to the IEP, which really comes to me as being here. Many of the parents come out and they ask, during the IEP meeting, as a parent, when you sit in the IEP meeting, if you have a challenge with the decision of the teacher's recommendation. One case is that I want to go in a self-contained class. The parent said no. All the teachers plus whoever that is assigned as a principal assistant, they said no, you have to actually accept our decision. As a parent, they said no, my child is self-contained class. He does not need that much of whatever support, but he needs more of a technique support if he's a visual learner, if he's whatever. We have that challenge all the time. Why do they give parents hard time in their decision? In other cases, there is an increased numbers of the whatever reading. When the parent says, no, I want maybe 2 hours, not 6 hours, or maybe 5 hours. What is the control of parents during those meetings? Can they not sign that day? Can they reject or appeal? I just want to make sure they understand, because most of them, 9 out of 10, would actually sign, accept the decision, and they come crying to me. We cannot do anything after they sign. It's more of a them. I just need that alert from you guys.
Okay, sure.
Do you want me to paraphrase for the camera? Okay. So the question was, if you're in an IEP meeting, so your child already is eligible for services and the team is talking about, through the IEP meeting, about the number of hours your child might need, the setting that your child might need, what rights do you have as parents as far as those pieces of the IEP? So, I do need to start from the beginning in that as professionals, so as a member of your child's IEP meeting, it is my professional responsibility to look at your child's testing, to look at your child's progress, understanding the impact of your child's disability on their learning, and to make my best professional judgment as to what I believe. So is it a self-contained class? Is it a general education class? Is it somewhere in between where it's a general education and special education combination? And I have to also use my professional judgment as to the number of hours he or she might need and accommodations and so forth. Every member of the team has that obligation. Sometimes what happens is we do get into disagreement with parents because as a professional side of the team, that is what we believe, and certainly as parents, you know your children, and you know what's best for your child as well, and you see it through your parental lens, and you either agree or disagree with the school team. So the first thing I would like you to know is that sometimes this is a very difficult conversation, but as the school team members, we are all a member of the team, but as the school team members, we are obligated to propose what we believe is the best. You absolutely have the right to share in the meeting that you don't agree, and hopefully that team works with you to come to some kind of an agreement, maybe asking you why you don't agree, and maybe explaining better why the team believes that, and maybe that will help you and you feel more comfortable. Maybe you really appreciate the explanation, but you still don't feel comfortable. So yes, absolutely, as a parent, you have the right to disagree with the school. And you can do that in many ways. You can do it certainly within the meeting. You are not required to sign anything the day of the meeting. You are certainly have the right to take it home, think about it again, maybe think of some more questions you want clarity on, talk to friends who maybe their children have an IEP, whatever resources you believe, maybe talk to the teachers again, or even to come back to IEP to talk through some more because you weren't clear on some things. So that's one option, so that you realize you do not have to sign the day of the meeting, okay? You then, if you decide you want to sign, but you're not comfortable with everything. So I really like that they're going to put my child in self-contained for math, but I think in reading they should stay in the general education class, but the school proposed to put them in the special education class for reading. So that's where you might disagree, right? You may do a partial agreement, which means you agree with some parts of the IEP. The pieces to which you do not agree, we cannot implement. Virginia is a consent state, which means we must have your permission before we change anything. So, if in your child's last IEP, he was in self-contained math, and you still agree, he'll stay in self-contained math. If he was in special education reading, and the school team continues to propose special education reading, but you don't agree with that part, there is a part of the law called stay put, which means the pieces that you don't agree to, we must implement the last IEP pieces that you did agree to. However, if the last IEP had general education for English or language arts, and this time the school is saying special education for language arts, but you don't agree, you can sign that partial agreement that you agree for special education for math, for example, but not for language arts. What is going to be the stay put now is going to be that general education language arts. Does that make sense? I know it's a little complicated. We had mentioned to you the procedural support liaison. If there's any time you have any concerns about the IEP proposal, you can certainly reach out to your procedural support liaison, and that is that person that can really help you understand and walk you through how to sign, whether you agree completely, whether you disagree completely, or if you have a partial agreement, and can help you understand what will be the consequences of that partial agreement. What will it look like? What will the services be for the parts you did not agree to? So you certainly have rights on multiple levels regarding that IEP proposal.
To prevent those technical issues that parents face, almost on a daily basis, which really takes a lot of time fixing calculations, why don't the county actually hire more parent liaisons, more special education personnel, similar to the parent liaison's job, where a parent can go and get educated on how can I file for IEP? What is IEP? Many don't know, many don't know. It's maybe a coincidence that they heard through a friend who recommended it. If their teacher did not bring it up, that parent is in a big whatever class and tell God knows when. What about if we can hire more people to really educate? We're receiving more refugees in the area. Think about the trauma that they've been into. Definitely they need more support in the school system. Is there any way we can raise our voice? And I'm speaking on behalf of many of our clients who bring this issue to me. So it's my duty to bring it to you and really make that alert that we need more of parent liaisons, more of those who are in education and support, and so make sure that we are on track. We don't really have to go bother the teacher or maybe bother you guys on a simple question that we get answered through the school. Is that something that we maybe can clarify?
So I would highly recommend, if you all have questions, you're not quite sure where to go, who to talk to, you can call us at the Parent Resource Center. And you don't have to come in, we'll talk to you on the phone. We are happy to do that. A lot of what we do at the Parent Resource Center is just what Tahani asked about. We get a lot of phone calls from families who are unsure about what's going on with their child's IEP, unsure about the process, just concerned about what's happening at their daughter's or son's school. And so what we do is we give you the resources and tools to help you advocate for your child. So whether that's a phone number or two that you might need, because you need to call, we're going to tell you who to call. We can send you resources. We do a lot of emailing in our office. So again, I know sometimes, it's hard to get to Doug Loring, whether you have transportation or not, or whatever the case may be. But if you have internet access and an email address, we can get things to you, okay? So, reach out to us. Again, maybe you want to talk to the school, but you're not quite sure how to go about it. We can help you through that, okay? That's what we do. That's what we're paid to do. That's what we want to do. And so please reach out to us, and then we can set you in the right direction. I will tell you, we don't go with parents to schools, or we don't do that kind of advocacy work. But our hope is, and maybe we're just referring you to a parent, to a procedural support liaison. But you didn't know who that person was, so we're giving you a phone number and an email address, and reaching out to the right people, okay? Because this is a large school system, and it is really hard to navigate. And again, that's one of the reasons why we're here today, to make it maybe a little smaller for you, so you're then able to get your questions answered in a timely way, okay? Yes, ma'am.
And my son is in grade now. I came here in United States 1 year before. I know my son has a problem. So when you go to school, I start with them. They were very cooperative with me. I made navigation on the internet, and now he's in IED program. He have reading and then difficulties of so now, of course, he's in 6th grade now. Sorry, he will go to middle school. So now he is in Marshall Road. Yeah, middle school is perfect for him. Now, how can I know which middle school is good for him? That have the same, specialist.
Well, that's a great question.
I have another question.
Okay, all right, so let's get to this one first. So her son is going to transition to middle school next year as a 7th grader. So he's currently 6th grade, has an IEP. So he goes to Marshall Road. I believe that would be Marshall High School, right? No.
Marshall Road is elementary.
I know, but what's middle? I'm sorry.
Marshall Road is.
Yes, that's the
Indiana. So Madison Pyramid. So
So that's
Thoreau Middle School. Okay. So and this is, I'm glad you brought this up, because some people don't realize this. Every school has special education programming. Okay? So he's not going to have to change schools unless he had a disability that was maybe more significant, and he needed a even more specialized program, because not every school has those. But every school has, so if he's been at his school receiving services as a child with a learning disability, he's going to get those services when he goes to middle school. And the same thing when your children go to high school. And they don't have to leave their base school to get those services. But what Marshall Road will help you do is he'll have a transition IEP meeting in the spring with someone who will come from Thoreau Middle School, someone from the special education department, and they'll be part of that transition meeting. So you'll be able to ask lots of questions about, oh my goodness, what happens at middle school? And that's a big transition for students. So someone will be at that meeting to help answer your questions. Okay?
Yes. So, I want to know about the curriculum. How can I help? Because I'm trying to find material in the net, in the end of the year there is SOL. I didn't know, because we are new here, and all the curriculum is different.
Sure.
So you don't have any level of in math or in science, but it's different, There's some things, some subject you didn't take. So I want to do it at home. How? I don't have the material.
This mom asked, she wants to help her son at home with some extracurricular things that he didn't get before he came to the United States. First and foremost, I would start with his teacher, because at the elementary school, what he or she is going to be able to do for you is to, maybe it's something that was taught here in the 3rd grade, but he hasn't had that. Or, he's maybe behind in reading or something like that. Your teacher is going to be able to help you with extra materials and give you some help in either finding other materials or giving materials to you so you can work with him at home. So please start with the teacher. They are really your best resource. Okay.
Yeah, the SAT, she can find the book in the library. I have 2 seniors.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, those of you in high school, I was a high school administrator, and that's a tough time. High school is tough navigating and figuring out what's going to happen as they move on. But absolutely talk to your college and career counselor. Every high school has a college and career center. And those people that run those centers are absolutely invaluable. They can help you with resources. The colleges come to the schools. But they also do career counseling as well. If your child maybe decides they're not going to go to college yet, or they're going to have a gap year, or they're going to be looking for jobs. That resource in your building is one of the best people, and a lot of people don't go there. So absolutely find out who your college and career counselor is at your high school. Oh, also, if your child has a disability and they're in high school, there is a person that is called an Employment Transition Representative, an ETR. They are staff that work with they start to talk with you and your family and your student about post-secondary supports and services. So when students get to high school or when they turn 14, they have what they call a transition plan that is part of their IEP. And that starts to talk about really kind of the career planning, college planning, as they start to think about exiting high school. It's never too early to start. But that ETR, as your child starts to get a little bit older in high school, will start to participate in your child's IEP meetings, but they're also a resource for you in finding, getting you associated with post-secondary supports like Department of Rehabilitative Services for children that may have intellectual disabilities. There are other resources, as well as for students who maybe aren't going to graduate with the typical standard diploma. We do have career centers and post-secondary programming through Career and Transition Services that students can go to for free that through the age 22. So that ETR is going to be a wealth of knowledge for you in looking at programming post-high school for your child.
As you know, the special education are levels. So some kids, they need a long term as a special education, and some of them, they need a short term thing. So some parents, they don't agree. They disagree to receive their kids this special education. So do they have this right or not?
So certainly when a student is, say, we've gone through the process, and the team decides that the child is eligible for special education services. But you're thinking about it, you're a parent, you're thinking, I just don't think that my child I don't believe that I want to have my child be in special education. I want them to stay in general ed. Maybe there are other supports that he or she could get there. You have the right to disagree. You do not have to give permission to have special education services implemented.
So when you are doing your initial, so you're first being found eligible and going through the process, you have to sign that eligibility paperwork when it's an initial, and if you don't agree, then we can't move forward with an IEP or any services for your child. So that's, or if you are in special ed and for some reason you would like services terminated, that's something that you have to terminate all services. You don't get to terminate bits and pieces of it, you just terminate it all. But usually we like to work through the process with families when they're concerned that maybe they don't believe that their child no longer needs the services. Let's have an IEP meeting, let's go back to eligibility, let's talk about what that child maybe needs. Maybe it's just reducing the services, but not totally getting rid of the services. As we see, as our students are exiting and going on to colleges, we are seeing more and more post-secondary programs opening up programs within their schools. They know that students have learning challenges and they have offices in their buildings, like Nova is one. George Mason has, where you can take your IEP and your eligibility information and let them know that you were a student with a learning disability or with some learning challenges, and they'll direct you to tutors, to different offices that they have now within their universities. There is a book of colleges that actually they support a lot of students with special needs throughout the country. So you can find those little catalogs that are out there that, your child may need a smaller college or may need a technical program that's out there where they may be, because we know that students, everybody has different needs and different challenges. So post-secondary facilities are now kind of looking into this. They're looking into programs that they can put in place to support students because they want them to be successful when they go to college or they go into their technical programs. They don't want them to fail out. They want them to complete those programs.
I almost think it's mandated now for colleges and universities, at least public colleges and universities, that they have an office for a disabilities office. My daughter just went off to college, and we happened to be in one of the centers in her school, and sure enough, there was the office. There are different kinds of disabilities. It is required. So, if your child does have an IEP in high school, it's okay. They can go to college. There are programs all over this country, and your ETR and your counselor at school and in your high school are really going to be those go-to people as your child starts to look for those post-secondary options.
So I'm sure you know in our law, until you're 18, you're not an adult. So your parents serve as your decision makers until you're 18. So our students who are found eligible, when they turn 18, if they are still receiving services, then the decision rests with them, not with you as the parent. But until they turn 18, the law is that you are the decision maker for your child. Not for special education.
How can a child progress and moving forward to the next grade without being able to?
So I think it's, we encourage families to have their children involved in the IEP process as much as you feel comfortable doing that. I think as students get older, they should be involved in their IEPs, they should be at the meetings, they don't have to be at the entire meeting, but let them come to part of the meeting, especially when they're in middle school and they're in high school because they're going to do a transition plan. We want to hear their voice. I want to know if that accommodation is really something that helps them. Because we are the adults making decisions for them. Sometimes it's great to hear their voice, say, when I'm in my writing class, I really struggle with this, and the computer doesn't help, or it does help. Or I like using the iPad versus using the laptop. So let your children be the voice too of what they need. So you invite them to the IEP meetings, they participate as much as you feel comfortable with them participating, and then they can support you if that's in some of the decisions you're making.
Was your question related to a child who was found eligible for special education or not? For,
But the parent, not just to have her child labeled as special education student, she refused to sign.
and we do encounter that oftentimes. We do. And unfortunately, we cannot implement those special education services without your consent. Of course, your child will continue to receive an education through the public school system, but he will receive, or she will receive, only general education, not special education. Without consent, we cannot do it. Sometimes it's very hard for us too.
I just want to mention one thing. This, when you talked about maybe the parent not understanding what was going on, sometimes it's a language thing, okay? And I want to make sure, again, that you have your voice here. Sometimes schools forget that we have second language parents. While your English may be good, perhaps everything that you hear may not get translated, okay, the way it should be. So if for any reason you believe, especially with a special education process, because it is very complicated, I would highly recommend that you ask for an interpreter, okay? An interpreter will be there, and we have specially trained interpreters in the county who understand special education, have been trained so they understand the process, the forms, and so forth, because we have varying levels of interpreters in the county, okay? Even though you feel like, oh, my English is really, really good, again, special education, and I hate to say it, but we have lots of vocabulary and lots of words and acronyms and things like that that are really difficult to understand and may not translate for you with your level of English. Please ask for an interpreter, okay? By law, we have to provide one for you. Hopefully the school's asking you, but if they're not, say, I really need an Arabic interpreter, I need a Farsi interpreter, I need a Spanish interpreter, whatever the case may be. The school system will make sure that happens for you and accommodate you in such a way. If you get to a meeting, you've asked for an interpreter and an interpreter is not there, you have the right to say, we cannot conduct this meeting because I need an interpreter. Okay, please know you have the right to do that. Don't go through a meeting and then be confused or sign something that you don't understand. Okay, an interpreter will go through the paperwork with you and go through everything and make sure that you understand. And it's okay if it takes time, it's all right.
And the school team may even bring an interpreter, even though you may have said, I'm fine. Don't worry about the interpreter staying at the meeting. I've been at meetings where parents have said, I don't want the interpreter there. And then the interpreter stays because the school system will bring the interpreter. And then all of a sudden, they'll turn, because they start to talk about something and it gets very complicated, reading programs and levels. And all of a sudden, the parent will turn to the interpreter and say, I'm not sure how to say what I want to say, so I'll use you then. And then it works out. So please, just if they're there, they may not say anything at the meeting if you don't need them there to say anything, or they may all of a sudden, somebody says something and you're really not sure, and then please use them.
So while I agree there's oftentimes the language barrier, please know even for native English speakers, the special education process is very cumbersome and complicated, okay?
Educators will talk education ease and forget.
And so what I suggest to you as well, putting the language barrier aside, whether it exists or not, it really comes down to just when you go to the doctor, you ask questions. Ask questions. Please don't be afraid. If you're not sure about something, keep asking questions. Even if you feel you're repeating yourself, it's okay. We're in education. We're there to help you learn also. So feel free to just keep asking the questions.
And just a reminder that that service is free to you. We're no charge.
So Ms. Karen said that the interpreter services are free for you. You don't pay for those. Did you have a second question?
Just because there's a question about we are a big majority of people, lots of people come to us to complain. And can you come with me to the school so I can, so you can translate here? But then this is not right. We have to have parents and more hours. Because even when we go and there's someone, okay, she's with another student or parent or teacher, she's busy. So we have big problems, especially
You are absolutely correct.
how can we fix that? Who should we reach to in order to fix that? If somebody hears us and hire more people that speak the language.
I think the school board is who you would need to ultimately. We completely agree with you. Trust us, as late hours as we work every day trying to get to all of our families and our schools, we agree. There aren't enough of us to get around to supporting all of you the way you might need it. But that's certainly, it's a school board decision about how many people that the county hires and the positions that they create. So certainly please write to the school board or attend the school board meetings. They take place every month at Luther Jackson Middle School. Every few weeks. They do offer public hearings, and you can put your name in as a request to speak to the entire school board and make your voice heard. You're welcome.
Questions back here, yes.
I have two kids, one in Glasgow and one in Just high school and high school. So they never told me, I have never been aware that there is Arabic education and of this. I have never been aware of this.
She wasn't, she's never been aware of Arabic education at Glasgow or
It's available throughout the school system. So did you ask for an interpreter? Or you said Glasgow?
And Jerusalem, but it's Thursday. We got one day a week.
For an IP
or just, I think,
Every time I ask for Arabic interpretation, they tell me it's not available, there's nothing today, so I never was able to.
You have an Arabic language interpreter, Nafisa Mohammed Taha, at Glasgow.
Every day before the Glasgow, no.
She's not there every day, but if you need an interpreter for a meeting at the school, you can ask.
Yes.
They do have one, they do not have one at the current time at Stewart. But you can ask for any meeting that you're having. And for example, we had back to school night the other night, and there were Arabic interpreters and Spanish language interpreters for parents.
And also Ms. Karen, when they set up the meeting, she should ask them.
And they should give them
Every
time.
day, my daughter speak in Arabic, but no. Sometimes in Jerusalem, no, anything.
Okay, but anytime you have a meeting, do you have an IEP for your child? Okay. Okay, so anytime.
She has one on her list, but sometimes the problems on that week. I can't wait.
Oh, when you come in for any information, would you ask in the Student Services Office, which is to the right as you enter, ask for the Director of Student Services or the Parent Liaisons and tell them you need help with an interpreter. And I'm going to provide you some language line information too.
So for those of you that don't know Karen, Karen Branch-Brioso, she is our community engagement, family engagement representative, I'm sorry, for Region 2. Okay, so Karen can help you. If you live in this region, you live in this area, she can help you with any of those schools, okay?
So Tahani, you had a couple of questions. Absolutely. Stay on the bus?
Yeah, from school to...
So the question was, just so that all of you are aware, if your child has special needs, you are entitled to transportation for your child to get to school. So the question is, how long can the child stay on the bus? I know that our best practice, our transportation doesn't like for the children to be on the bus for more than an hour. So we certainly talk about that at the IEP meeting. If the ride is longer than that, 2 hours on the bus? Going from home to school is 2 hours? So it's in the afternoon?
Yeah, in the morning, 1 hour.
Okay, so maybe it's a traffic, it might be a traffic issue. What time does school dismiss?
Sometimes she comes at like 5:30, 5:35, sometimes 6.
Have you asked the spoken to somebody in transportation to ask
Actually, I talked to her teacher yesterday. Yesterday I learned from school. She said it's 2 hours per student.
Yes, it's 2
But
hours.
the teacher said the school or I called transportation last week. She said it's on but 2 hours is
I would ask for an IEP meeting and ask them to invite transportation to the meeting. Okay. I'm sorry, you have a meeting?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
May or
No, you can ask for it. Go home today and ask for them to set up a meeting for you and ask them to invite transportation. That's a long time. Yes. And you want an IEP meeting, and then you had other issues, so you may as well ask them to come back for a meeting and talk about everything. Okay? Yes.
My husband because sometimes she has meetings, she has work, she has after school, she has meetings, and she needs my help. But she said that in our school, the teachers and counselors, she use the parents come to the school. We want us only us do our work by ourselves, you know. But sometimes the parents not enough for help, you know. I don't know,
How old is she? Oh, it's your senior in high school.
I have one daughter in fourth grade. She's in elementary school, and we came here since only 1 year. And when she came, she was English and Arabic, but now she is with Arabic and she can't talk Arabic. You know, I don't know why in the school, the elementary school, no Arabic classes. Just for the thing. You know,
So,
they can understand more and they can.
So for your first question, if your daughter's needing some more support, her teachers should be staying after school. She can coordinate with them and say, you know, Mrs. Johnson, I need to stay after school for help with math. And so they should be able to coordinate together. She can check with her counselor to get after school help also. And sometimes in the high schools, there are the students who have become part of the National Honor Society, and they also sometimes help each other and stay after school and teach each other. So for example, if I'm taking Algebra 2 and I'm a senior and I need help, maybe a senior, also one of my classmates, maybe is taking calculus. So they're very good at math, and maybe they can stay after school and help me. Does that make sense? That might be an extra resource that your daughter can access, is staying after school for help. Will that help? Okay. And then, yeah, and if I can share, I have a very similar experience. My parents were both immigrants. I was born in this country, so I started speaking Italian when I was very little, and then once I went to school, no one spoke to me in Italian, so I too lost a lot of my home language. So I do encourage you, keep speaking to your children at home in Arabic. They understand, and just don't ever answer them in English. When they speak to you, you keep speaking to them in Arabic. And listening to your music, you know, there are ways that they can keep getting the language, and it will come to them. I promise.
Hello, I'd like to explain to you the parent information phone lines that we have in different languages, including Arabic, Farsi, Urdu. I can hand these out. Now, this is not for emergencies, so please don't use this for an emergency. Okay. But this is 24 hours a day. There is a recording. You can call the line in your language. Leave a message. Please, please leave very clearly your phone number. We do not have caller ID. So leave your phone number and then leave your question about the school. Either it could be about Stewart High School, it could be about something else, about another school, anything to do with the Fairfax County Public School system, and you don't have someone in the school to answer the question for you, call this line, and then within 24 hours during the week, during the school week, you will get a call back, okay? And we have this, again, we have this in Amharic, Arabic, Chinese, Farsi. Any Farsi speakers here today? No Farsi? Korean, Spanish, Urdu. Anybody speak Urdu? And Vietnamese. And these are available as a service for you. So if it's not for an emergency, but you can call and get a response within 24 hours. Generally, the way they work it, if you have a question about your school, the phone line responder will respond, will call you back, clarify your question, and then call your school to pass along the information or to get clarification for your question, okay? So if anybody wants this, please let me know and I'll hand it out and mark which language, which line is for your home language.
I have two questions from social media. One actually, I don't know the answer, but I would like to make it to you guys. She has a son who's severe autism, and he could not sign for himself, but he's over 18. So whenever she goes to the school, they don't ask for her signature, he has to sign. Even though the signature is really out of the track, it's not going to get the whole thing. As parents, what is it that you are determined to them to move on and do so that they can take over, which is most likely the guardianship? And that's what I replied, and she said it's too expensive. I reached out to some lawyers, but it's like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to hire a lawyer to go ahead to court and give the parents the guardianship to make sure they can sign. To whom can they go through that the county since they are low income?
Have they thought about going through the ARC? The ARC of Northern Virginia? Yeah, the ARC of Northern Virginia, they could go through there and see if there are resources that could provide them with some sort of, maybe there's a sliding scale that they could do. I would try them.
Yeah, ARC is ARC of Northern Virginia. But they would be able to, they may have resources for attorneys or just supports because you do have to, if you have a child with a significant disability and they cannot make decisions for themselves. Parents do have the right to go after guardianship for them. I've had several parents in the past do that for their students, but the ARC of Northern Virginia they have a lot of families that come to them because they work with a lot of families that have children that have intellectual disabilities, but that shouldn't stop you from calling them. They work with all different kinds of families, but they should be able to help.
Second question. She wants to take, I have a parent who speaks good English, and I know many of you understand that when she went to the IEP, she misunderstood the term of self-contained. She thought it's an extra support. So that's what I thought. So I signed for it. My son would come daily and complain about self-contained. He's a very normal kid, but he's a little hyper. We needed more of a support, but not self-contained. She did not understand, and she actually assigned him to enter the self-contained. That kid kept ringing the bell. Mom, I don't like school. I don't want to go. There's sick people in the class. You know, he's okay to be in the normal class, but the mom did not know, and she speaks English, by the way. So make sure, please, as they advised you earlier, to ask for an interpreter, for someone to go with you. So we just wanted to bring that alert to, like, please make sure parents, are alert of that. I fell into that mistake. I don't want anyone else to be put in the same situation.
Because we'll use words that are not, and they're just not interchangeable. So self-contained setting basically means you're going to be in a special ed setting all that period of time, all with students with disabilities, not with students without disabilities.
The way she understood it, was like, wow, my son is going to be taken care of, he's going to be given extra time, more teachers will be helping him, less students in the classroom. That's not what you're saying. It's a different setting, different technique in a way. Many students, if they come home, please, if you made a mistake, listen to your child, make sure you go, make sure you maybe visit this class, just take that time, don't just say it's okay, it's enough. Because as parents, you say it's okay, it's a new class, you'll be fine, it's not fine.
And we encourage you, if your student is going to be going, they're proposing a different school for a different program, because in your school, that program they don't have that specific program. Please go on a site visit. Please go visit. Go take a tour. They ask you to go. Take the child with you. It's okay to go on those site visits because they will take you through the school and then you can see. So it's not a surprise for you the first time you're actually going to that building. So we always offer those, and please take advantage of them.
Even if your child, maybe they're saying they go from general ed to self-contained or special ed setting, it's okay. You can ask to go see what those classrooms look like, okay, before you make a decision. Our best advice to you is make informed decisions. Ask a lot of questions. If you want to see what a classroom looks like, if you want to talk with that particular teacher of that class, you have the right to ask to do that. Okay, I encourage you to do that.
Also, there's two mothers who brought that up so far about self-contained classes. She's asking the system, Fairfax County system, whoever is accepting that change, other than the IEP meeting, where you can make it mandatory for those moms or parents who make the decision to go for a class visit before the placement is done. Is that possible?
We can't force someone to go. We can go with, sometimes our procedural support liaison will go with them. We encourage them not to go.
As long as they have that right.
Right.
It's fine, but after the damage is there, that's causing more damage.
Maybe as a system, we can encourage our special education teachers or our teams to bring that up during an IEP meeting or even a pre-IEP, or just a meeting at the school if the child is even maybe going to be found eligible. We need to do a better job at having our teams communicate with families, kind of all those pieces.
That would introduce the afterwards.
Yes.
The question is, is there any kind of seminars, workshop, for parents to get educated about all these special services, the way they are offered, and how can parents take advantage of these services with the community? Or should we do a workshop?
Well, so at the Parent Resource Center, where I am, we offer a lot of workshops. If you see, and the packet that I did bring today, it's up through November, but that doesn't mean we might not be offering something that you're interested in later. If you have a question or are looking for a certain type of workshop, give us a call. And if it's something that maybe we aren't doing, but we know another office in FCPS is doing something like that, or we can make a suggestion to another office in FCPS that, hey, we're getting a lot of phone calls about families who might need to learn more about language services or about interpret or reading programs or something like that. We can make those recommendations and pass that information forward. So give us a call, okay?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. So if there aren't any other questions, I guess we'll kind of close it out. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for having us today, and please give us a call. You need anything. No question is a bad question. I mean, every question's a good one. So call us, and we'll be happy to help you in any way we can. All right, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.